Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be in the world at the moment. I'm Simon Tutman. Welcome to the first edition of Law Chat for 2022. This is a monthly series of conversations with luminaries from the legal services sector. And I'm delighted to welcome my law consultancy network colleague all the way from Macclesfield in Cheshire, Nigel Haddon. Good morning to you, Nigel.
Good morning, Simon. Good evening, Simon, and good afternoon to everybody else. It's a real pleasure to be with you. Thank you for inviting me to join you, Simon.
It's a great pleasure. I should say that by way of introduction, Nigel, for 30 years, was a lawyer in private practice, and for 9 of those years served as managing partner and CEO of a regional firm in the UK. And he transformed that firm and took it from very much a high street firm to a top 200 firm. He was the former chair of the law management section of the Law Society, is a teaching fellow at the College of Law in Australia, and since 2014 has been the managing director of his own consulting business. I should also make a comment and thank our sponsors. That's Moore Markhams, who once again are sponsoring this series of conversations, law chats throughout 2022. Moore Markhams, accountants and business advisors, providing financial services to the legal profession. Thank you, Moore Markhams. So, Nigel, just tell us a little bit about your professional life there. You've been in private practice, and for the last 7 or 8 years or so, you've been consulting. Very much, I understand your work now is very much supporting leaders in law firms, not just on a national basis in the UK, but also internationally.
Yeah, Simon, that's it does feel like a new lease of life, I have to say, since leaving private practice. I think 30 years on that particular grindstone is long enough for most people. So since leaving private practice, I've concentrated my consultancy activities on 3 core areas that have not changed since 2014. So I'm helping law firms with mergers and acquisitions, and I know that's one of the subjects we'll discuss later on in this call. I work, as you rightly say, supporting leadership teams in law firms, and perhaps sort of in terms of throwing a convenient label out there, you might describe what I do as being akin to being a non-executive director. I prefer the phrase acting as a law firm's critical friend. So it's both challenge and support, and sometimes NEDs may not offer as much challenge and may not offer as much support. So I prefer that label, critical friend. And the third angle, which you're well aware of, Simon, is pricing. I've been working with Richard Bircher, who's an internationally known pricing consultant since 2014. And I think across the 3 activities, I've now worked with well over 100 law firms now in 10 jurisdictions, including just across the sea from you in Australia.
Well, we hope to get you down to New Zealand at some point when this government allows people in.
I'm looking forward to it already.
Absolutely. Well, listen, good to have you here this evening or this morning in the UK, and thanks for talking with us. But when we promoted this chat, I put it out there that we'd be talking about the key issues impacting law firms, presumably of different persuasions, in 2022. These obviously been interesting times as we're sort of coming out of lockdown in various countries. I listed there 7 areas for consideration, and we'll see if we can get through them in the next half an hour. But those 7 were recruitment and retention, hybrid working, sustainability, culture, pricing, governance, and consolidation. So which of those would you like to start with?
Let me start with tackling a point you raised in your preamble, Simon, which is really what sort of clients are we talking about here? Which part of the market am I going to cover? It will be fair to say that the vast majority of my work, well over 90% of it, is in the middle of the sector, so not the top 100. So probably firms 101 down to 300, which in monetary terms, if this is of any help to those watching, you're talking at the very, very bottom end, 5 million or so turnover. That's obviously in pounds sterling, up to maybe 20 million. And probably within that rather broad category, 10 to 15 is is the sweet spot, really. That's where I do an awful lot of my work. And in many aspects of professional life, we talk about the squeezed middle, and that middle group of firms is feeling more squeezed than it has done, in my opinion, since the dark days of the global financial crisis. Once again, you've got larger law firms coming down market to swoop for talent as well as clients. You've got disaffected lawyers and attorneys leaving the squeezed middle because of the opportunities that present themselves. And always you've got small and niche firms starting. So we've got the sort of broiling ferment of activity at the top and the bottom. And the middle at the moment is not a nice place to be. So that's sort of a context for our discussion. Perhaps recruitment and retention, which is not my field, and I'm not going to pretend to your audience I'm an expert in all of these, but recruitment and retention is the single largest area of activity and interest that I experience. Whenever I'm talking to law firm leaders, it's the first thing that comes up. And that the reason for mentioning the squeezed middle perhaps puts this readily in context. It is by distance the toughest market I've seen in my 10 years in the sector. We're at a situation now where candidates hold all the aces, where money talks, and currently money is shouting. What were formerly high-end benefits like private health cover for an employee and their family, gym membership, set your own working hours. Those things are now table stakes for associates and junior partners, just the price of admission. And those used to be the things that dragged candidates over the line. The rate of pay increases being seen in the UK borders from the eye-watering to the obscene. You may have read about it, Simon, but the US firms based in London have driven the starting salary for newly qualifieds well over six figures. And I think there was even one US firm that's offering its trainees a six-figure income.
Wow.
It beggars belief. And the rate of pay increases that are being offered and obviously accepted, it can only end in one of two ways, can't it? Which is a squeeze on profitability, and equity partners don't tolerate that for very long, or an attempt, and I use the word attempt advisedly, to pass on the additional cost to clients. And in a market where clients feel they hold the balance of power in their relationships with their external law firms, I'm not sure that's a wise way forward. So logically, if you follow it through, more imaginative solutions have to be found, don't they? Against the rising cost of supply and clients who are willing to switch suppliers to avoid increases in price, it probably leads us inevitably to looking for process improvement or value pricing, one of which I can talk about at some length.
Yes.
I was working with a firm in Scotland 3 or 4 weeks ago, nice change for me, dealing with their rising stars, their next generation on pricing. And the CEO told me that 4 people in the room, I think I was working with 10 people, 4 people in the room had been offered positions elsewhere in the previous 10 days alone. One of them had been offered £50,000 more than they were on to move. An absolutely eye-watering figure. So we're talking an increase in basic pay of over 50%. And they turned it down. They turned it down because one was an international firm that's well known for having an American-ish approach to work, as in high chargeable hours targets, you're driven hard, you work hard, you enjoy the rewards. he rather liked the culture of the firm that he was with. He liked the fact that there was an easier route to full equity partnership. He liked his colleagues and was prepared to play the long game. I wonder how many others in his shoes would have done the same.
Well, presumably a bit of work-life balance was important for that person.
Very much so. And I think we'll come on in shortly to the topic of hybrid working. What sort of work you ask of your staff now, where they do it, the hours that they put in, when they're available to work, when they're contactable, all of these things now are part of the mix. And one of the legacies of the pandemic in the UK is that it has opened up the market to a truly national market. We used to have probably 3 markets in the UK, which was central London, the regional cities, there's 6 big cities in the UK with big professional centres, and the rest. And now, and pay and varied accordingly and appropriately. Now, London firms are prepared to offer London rates to people who don't move to London, but who might be based in a small town like Macclesfield, might be based in one of the regional centres, but they have the raw talent that the firm is looking for. They're prepared to pay them London rates, and they might say, well, come to the office 3 or 4 times a month, but the rest of the time you can work from home. That's very attractive. It's very attractive. But it also works the other way round. And that to me is a really interesting dynamic. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the years to come, because while there are firms in the provinces and in the regional cities anxiously looking at their talent, and their London firms attempting to poach them, there are also, in the same breath, those very same provincial firms and regional city centre firms looking to London lawyers saying, you don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
Come out here. Yeah. So it works both ways. And I wonder, I'm genuinely interested to know how that one will play out. So it's a question we might address again in 2 or 3 years, and I might be able to give you the answer on that.
That'll be fascinating. But I suppose, in all of this is the leader's challenge to retaining good people. Is it just about the dollar? And if it's not, then what else can or should they be doing to hold on to good people?
Yeah, well, it's a very good question, Simon. And as was implicit in the question, it's not all about the dollar. I gave you the example of the lawyer in Scotland who turned down more than a 50% pay increase. I think while I've hosted a roundtable meeting of managing partners devoted to answering that single question, Simon, the only answer I can come up with that was consistently offered by law firm leaders was culture. What do we offer as a place to spend a significant part of your life that will give you the professional satisfaction that you crave, the interaction with colleagues that you crave, the chance to fulfill personal goals and career development, but is also fun, allows you to be your true self, allows you to be yourself, have fun, and achieve everything you wanted to out of your professional life. And I know you wrote a piece a little while ago, Simon, about not being your true self when you started out in the law. I think that was right in our era. We all were. We had a work persona and a home persona, in many ways similar to the way we had a persona for mum and dad and a persona for our friends. We used to sort of switch hats, but millennials don't. Millennials wear the same hat whether they're at home, with friends, in the workplace. So having something genuinely attractive in terms of culture is a key differentiator. And as you can imagine, it plays better in retention than it plays in recruitment.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to offer a lateral hire or high-end candidate some sort of copper-bottomed guarantee that the culture will suit them. They have to see it. They have to be part of it. But for those that are there, particularly those that have had the experience of working elsewhere, it can be the ace card. And I know most of the law firm leaders I work with have devoted enormous resources to improving their culture, to eradicating the bad apples, the bad examples of partner behaviour and so on. So I think it's absolutely key. And the dollar can't always win. This has to be the way forward.
Moving towards the aspect of hybrid working, of course, there's been a lot of talk in recent months about this phenomenon known as the Great Resignation. Is that impacting on firms, particularly amongst those that don't have a great culture, and all of a sudden some of their lawyers are saying, sod this for a game of soldiers, I'm going to work from home or go and set up my own law firm?
Yeah, it most certainly is, Simon. We are seeing, and it was probably implicit in the first topic we covered about recruitment and retention, a level of volatility in the legal sector, again, that I've not seen before. Now, when we talk about hybrid working, I think it's probably important to pause and discuss briefly what we mean by that. There is the obvious post-pandemic sense of a mixture of working from home and attending the office. There's also working with a dispersed or virtual law firm, and that's where some of those disaffected attorneys are going to, Simon. And there's a third possibility when we're talking about hybrid working, and that's hybrid firms. Firms that have a core retained staff and hire lawyers when demand justifies that. So core and flexible. And that's a topic that our law consultancy network colleague Catherine Thomas has written a lot about and made a lot of good sense on. So I'll give you an example from the UK. My law firm client is very, very traditional in their structure, in their leadership, but they're very, very innovative and entrepreneurial. And one of the things they have recently done is use the core flexi model. They've managed to attract a partner from a large London firm with a very substantial personal following. He'd have been looking in terms of salary for £250,000 per annum to tempt him away. That would have broken open all pay scales, etc., etc. The innovative solution they came up with for that gentleman who took the deal was, why don't you come to us on a consultancy virtual law firm basis, work for us for a year and keep 70% of your billings.
Yeah.
That doesn't offend any of the retained staff, the salaried partners. If he ends up being their highest paid employee, it will be because he has produced the highest fees by a country mile.
Yeah.
So these developments are allowing law firms to find innovative solutions to growth problems. And again, I think it's fascinating to see how that will develop. But your fundamental point is a good one. There have been, for as long as I've been in the sector, approximately 10,000 law firms in the UK. There is, and we'll get onto it later, a big wave of consolidation at the moment. But every time, half a dozen firms leave, as you read about this month's mergers, there's half a dozen niche firms set up by partners breaking away from firms that, in their view, are either struggling or don't offer them the long-term future that they want. And I'm well aware of a number of those. So hybrid working, like our earlier conversation about recruitment and retention, there are challenges there for law firms, but there are also fabulous opportunities. And I think the challenge for leadership, and it was one that back in the day when it was my job, I seemed to have something hardwired into my DNA. Every problem that came on my desk, I turned into an opportunity. It's just you have to have that ability to look for the upside. So and so key partners leaving. Okay, blank sheet of paper in that department. What do we do with it? Yeah. So challenges and opportunities.
Very good. Tell us about pricing, because you do a lot of work there at the moment. Is there a trend or growing trend in the UK for firms that historically might have resisted the idea of value pricing or introducing alternative pricing methods to now embracing you and everything that you and Richard Bircher espouse?
I don't think it is a growing trend. And it amazes me, considering how busy Richard and I have been for years and years, that there aren't more firms seeing that this is absolutely vital to their futures. For your audience, and I'll assume that the majority of the firms watching this recording may not have gone down the value pricing route, but without a shadow of a doubt, it is the single biggest lever a law firm can pull in terms of profitability. Nearly all the other initiatives, they can affect profitability by 0.5%, 1%, 2%. They're all useful in terms of building competitive advantage and sustainability. But pricing, you can go woof and put 10% on net profit or 20% on net profit literally overnight. So, but more importantly, perhaps, given the markets we're in, value pricing is a way of offering clients what clients want, while at the same time optimizing profitability. And instead of approaching pricing on a that's my price, take it or leave it, or well, those are my hourly rates, why do you ask the client what the client wants? Why don't you ask the client what the client's appetite is for price risk? Do they want to take the risk as to price, for example, on traditional time-based billing, or do they want you to take the risk with fixed or guaranteed fees? And a wholly different conversation ensues, one that's more collaborative rather than confrontational. And the magic of pricing, which Richard and I have been advocating for years now, is that if it's embraced, if it's understood, you will have happier clients and make more money. So we see firms that grasp this nettle pull away from their competitors. We do, however, see a remarkable conservatism, a level of inertia around the middle tier law firms and below. And it's one of those things you scratch your head and say, what is it that differentiates a £10 million law firm that's struggling against a £10 million law firm that's on a strong growth curve? Well, it's being open to change, open to new ideas, and genuinely looking at things in a client-focused way. So while we are not short of work in the pricing area, there's a vast, vast untapped market out there of firms that either should be looking at value pricing, and as you called it, alternative fee arrangements. They either should be looking at that or will inevitably be forced, because of the activity of their competitors, to do something about it.
I mean, I agree. I think there's a huge opportunity for firms there, and it's already been proven even in this part of the world too, in terms of introducing fixed pricing, possibly more prevalent, I think, in Australia than New Zealand. I mean, I've found over here that I've had pushback from some firms who say, well, we've tried to introduce it, but some of our clients are so used to us billing by the hour that that suits them. Now, whether that's a cop-out, I'm not really quite sure. I'm hoping to find out a little bit more, because I'll be hosting, here's a little plug here, but on the 16th of March, I'm hosting an alternative pricing workshop with John Chisholm, who is regarded throughout Australasia as one of the key proponents and advocates of moving away from hourly billing to fixed pricing, or I should really say value pricing. So it's going to be interesting when we have that debate, just to see what mood is in the camp, really. But interesting also that a concept that can unlock something that so many firms would welcome is still resisted because of its innovative concept.
It's resistance to change, and that is something that characterises our profession, I'm afraid, Simon. The point you'll be exploring when you have your conference with John Chisholm is one that frequently crops up when I'm training lawyers. There's the initial scepticism, followed by the light bulb moment, followed by the yes, I can't wait to get started. with all new clients, then there's the cloud that comes and obliterates the light bulb for a moment and effectively says, oh no, how am I going to sell this to my existing clients who are used to us doing X, Y, Z? And the answer to that is baby steps. For existing clients on existing matters, give them what they're used to as one choice, introduce another choice. Start talking to them about the way that your firm approaches pricing different to other firms. We always believe in giving clients a couple of pricing choices. But pricing is just another way of helping you have better relationships with clients. If a client is strongly and robustly saying, a plague on you and your innovative ideas, just give me what I'm used to, well, that's a fairly strong signal, isn't it? You don't force a client to change if they don't want to, but at least tell them this is what you're doing, and if it works for them, you'd be delighted to explore a number of pricing alternatives with them.
Absolutely. So it sounds like some sound advice, and I shall report back to you after March the 16th and tell you what I came across. One of the issues that you want to talk about also, and I'm conscious we've got about 4 minutes left, very briefly, a big topic, but that's the issue of sustainability. So I guess my question to you is that as firms look to develop a broader social purpose or a broader why as they develop their strategies, is the issue of sustainability increasing on the agenda?
Very much so, Simon, and it was interesting you used the Y word there. I don't meet a managing partner nowadays who's not watched their share of Simon Sinek videos on YouTube. So what is our purpose? What is our why? What are our values? What is our mission? And even if they come up with rather rudimentary or obvious answers to those questions, nothing that blows you away, they're all recognizing that for the millennials in their workforce, for those they are seeking to attract, it has to be more than a professional development. It has to be more than growth. It has to be more than profitability, etc., etc. So I think there's been both a push and pull here, Simon. I think there's a push from the client side. And when I say client in this side, I don't mean your average Joe, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I mean organizations that have a level of sophistication in choosing their external suppliers. They want their law firms to look a bit like them rather than look like the staid professionals of 10 years ago. They want them to have the similar values and similar commitments. And there is also absolutely the pull from the millennials who believe that the places they go to work should be as committed to, for example, minimizing impact on the environment as they are in their own personal lives. So it's a huge area of growth. One of my law firm clients, right in the middle of the mid-tier, £10 million law firm, they're the only law firm of anywhere near that size I know that has a responsible business director, a person employed full-time to build client engagement, employee engagement, community engagement, and minimizing the firm's carbon footprint.
Wow.
I mean, it is wow, isn't it?
I don't know that label here yet.
I think as the managing partner of that firm said to me when they were considering that opportunity, this topic isn't going anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Watch this space.
Yeah. Address it and address it now.
Absolutely. One last question before we go, Nigel. Any advice for leaders who might be pulling their hair out saying, my goodness, I'm being pulled in all sorts of different directions?
Get support, get help. Many of them have that help through good peer-to-peer networking. Some have coaches. But I've mentioned to you before this call, there is not before time a growth in the appetite of mid-tier law firms for some external support, be it a non-executive director, be it a critical friend, be it an occasional ad hoc support from the likes of thee and me. Somebody who can bring true objectivity, somebody who can ask the difficult questions. One of my clients had a very nice turn of phrase for addressing the what did I bring to the table question, probably answered it better than I could. He said, each time you come, you see things which we see as wallpaper.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
So it just brings a different perspective, something that's truly objective, not mired in the it's always been this way, or you can't deal with that sacred cow, or you can't change that partner's behaviour. So that fresh perspective, independent, objective perspective, it has enormous value for law firms, and it's only just beginning to be appreciated.
Well, that's good to hear. And for those wanting to contact you, particularly over in Europe and in the UK, your website is
www.haddonconsult.co.uk.
That's wonderful. Nigel, we've got to go, but I'd like to welcome you back to the UK. I know you had a very nice holiday apparently recently in warm climes of Sri Lanka. You're looking very well. Thanks for joining me, and Happy New Year to you. Related. We'll be in touch again very soon, but for now, that ends the February edition of Law Chat. I'll be back next month with another guest, but for now, Nigel, take care and have a good day over there.
Thank you.
All the best.